Harry and Meghan chose now for their latest cosplaying sham royal tour. We'll get the verdict from Australia, where the egos have landed, and I have an exclusive announcement coming up about how Uncensored will be covering this momentous existential time for the royal family.
Despicable fake tears at Bondi Beach, using a terrorist atrocity to sell her shitty clothing.
For years, Meghan Markle has mastered the art of public emotion, but not everyone is convinced. When Piers Morgan unleashed a blistering critique, accusing her of a staged, calculated performance, the internet erupted. His words weren't just sharp, they were explosive, cutting straight through the carefully crafted image many had come to believe. Was this brutal takedown rooted in truth or personal vendetta? And what did Morgan see that others missed in that controversial moment? And do you really believe Meghan could fake an emotional moment? Let us know in the comments. To help us create more videos and reveal the real world, please subscribe so more people can discover this. The return to the spotlight. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle chose to step away from royal duties, their decision seemed straightforward. They spoke about wanting space. Space from constant attention, from public pressure, and from the rigid expectations that come with royal life. It sounded like a desire for something quieter, more personal, and more controlled. Many people understood it as a clear break, a move away from tradition into independence. But recent events, especially their visit to Australia, have added a new layer to that story, one that feels far less simple. Instead of fading into a more private life, their presence seemed just as visible, just as structured, and just as closely watched as before. The scenes felt familiar: public appearances, media coverage, carefully observed interactions. It didn't quite look like a life removed from the spotlight. In fact, it looked to many like a return to it, just in a different form. This is where the situation becomes fascinating. On one hand, they have clearly distanced themselves from official royal responsibilities. They are no longer working members of the royal institution. On the other hand, their actions still carry the tone and weight of that world. Their travels resemble royal tours. Their appearances draw global attention. Their voices still hold influence in ways that ordinary public figures rarely do. This creates a quiet but powerful tension. It raises a question that doesn't have an easy answer. What exactly are they now? Are they private individuals building an independent life? Or are they still, in some way, representing a version of royalty, only this time defined by their own rules? For many observers, this tension doesn't feel accidental. It feels carefully balanced. The royal titles have not disappeared. Their global recognition has not faded. The interest in their lives remains strong, perhaps even stronger than before. And with that level of visibility, scrutiny naturally follows. People watch more closely. They analyze more deeply. Every move carries meaning, whether intended or not. The truth is, stepping away from something as powerful and historic as the British royal system is not like leaving an ordinary job. It's not something that can simply be switched off. The identity, the symbolism, and the expectations are deeply rooted. Once someone has been part of that world, especially at such a high level, it becomes almost impossible to separate completely from it. That is part of what makes their story so compelling. It is not just about leaving, it is about what comes after leaving. It is about how identity evolves when someone walks away from a role that once defined them. And in their case, that evolution is happening in full view of the world. There is also something deeply human in this contradiction. Wanting freedom, but still holding on to parts of what gave you influence. Seeking privacy, but still engaging in public life. Redefining your path, while carrying the weight of your past. These are not simple choices, and they rarely lead to simple outcomes. So the intrigue doesn't lie only in what they have said about their intentions. It lies more in what people continue to see, the patterns, the appearances, the decisions that seem to echo their former roles. It is in that space between their words and their actions that curiosity grows. And perhaps that is why the world continues to watch so closely. Not just to understand what they are doing, but to make sense of what it all means. Because their story is no longer just about stepping away from royalty, it is about redefining it, reshaping it, and possibly even recreating it in a way that has never quite been seen before. What made Piers Morgan declare Meghan a cheat? Where and how did it happen? Let's delve into the details of the moment of emotion that looked more like an acted scene. The Bondi Beach. At Bondi Beach, one of the most emotional stops during the royal tour, the atmosphere was already heavy before anything even happened. The place itself carried a quiet sadness. Not long before the visit, a tragic event had taken place there, leaving behind grieving families, shocked friends, and a community still trying to heal. So when the royal visit was announced, it was already expected to be a sensitive and emotional moment. Into this setting arrived Meghan Markle, with global attention already locked in. Cameras were carefully placed, photographers had their positions ready. Every movement was likely to be captured from multiple angles, even before anyone stepped onto the sand. It was not a private moment. It was public, highly visible, and closely watched from the start. Then came the moment that would soon travel around the world. During the visit, Meghan was seen becoming emotional. A single tear rolled down her face, caught clearly by the cameras. It was a brief moment, but powerful enough to shape headlines, fuel discussions, and dominate news cycles for days. For many people watching, it felt real and human. They saw a woman visibly touched by the sadness of the place and the stories connected to it. To them, the tear reflected empathy, sensitivity, and emotional awareness in a deeply sorrowful environment. In that view, it was simply a natural response to a painful setting. But not everyone saw it that way. Critics, including media commentator Piers Morgan, questioned the authenticity of the moment. They argued that everything around it felt too perfect. The timing, the camera placement, and the clarity of the image made it seem, to them, less like an unplanned emotional reaction and more like a carefully framed scene. In their eyes, it raised a difficult question. When cameras are everywhere and attention is intense, can a moment still be completely natural? This disagreement quickly grew into a wider debate. Some defended Meghan, insisting that emotional reactions do not become fake just because cameras are present. Others insisted that when emotion is so neatly captured and widely shared, it is fair to examine how spontaneous it truly was. The conversation became less about one tier and more about how public emotion is interpreted in the modern media world. However, what truly intensified the backlash was not only the emotional moment itself, but what came afterward. Soon after the visit, reports began circulating about the outfit Meghan wore at Bondi Beach. It was linked to her fashion-related platform, which promotes clothing and lifestyle choices. This connection changed how some people viewed the entire scene. What initially looked like a moment of compassion, to them, began to feel layered with additional meaning. Suddenly, questions started to shift. Was the focus only on paying respect and showing empathy? Or was there also an element of visibility, branding, and timing tied into the appearance? This is where the controversy deepened. When a moment of public grief, emotional display, and fashion promotion appear close together, people naturally begin to scrutinize it more closely. Intent becomes a subject of debate, perception becomes divided, and even genuine emotion, whether intended or not, gets pulled into wider discussions about image and influence. In the end, the Bondi Beach moment became more than just a royal visit. It turned into a case study in how modern public life works, where emotion, media coverage, and personal branding can overlap so tightly that separating sincerity from perception becomes almost impossible. What seemed strange about the engagements? Why did people start asking questions? Let's find out. The business of influence. As the tour continued, observers began to notice a clear and repeating pattern. one that critics could no longer easily dismiss. What were once expected to be simple public engagements, focused on service and connection, slowly started to look different. Instead of being seen only as moments of duty or public goodwill, many of these appearances were increasingly viewed as platforms for visibility, personal branding, and expanding influence. One of the clearest examples often mentioned was a wellness retreat held in Australia. This event was presented as something deeply meaningful and life-changing. It was described as a special space where people could come together to heal, grow, and be inspired. The promise was attractive and emotional. Attendees were encouraged to invest significant money for the opportunity to be part of it, with the added appeal of being in the presence of Meghan herself. The message behind it was powerful. This was not just an event, but a rare chance for inspiration, motivation, and personal transformation. However, according to various accounts and reports that followed, the experience did not fully match the expectations that had been set. Some attendees felt that the setting itself did not reflect the level of refinement they had anticipated. The organization appeared less polished than expected for an event of such high profile. In addition, the turnout reportedly did not reach the numbers many had imagined, which added to the sense that something was missing in the overall execution. Perhaps the most talked about aspect, however, was the limited time Meghan actually spent at the retreat. Instead of a full, immersive presence, she reportedly appeared for just a little over 2 hours before leaving for another scheduled engagement. For those who had invested both money and emotional expectation into the experience, this short appearance felt disappointing. Many described the encounter as rushed, leaving them with more questions than fulfillment. From the perspective of critics, this is where the situation becomes more than just about one event. It begins to raise broader concerns about how public influence is being used. When personal visibility is blended with structured experiences that require financial investment, the distinction between genuine service and commercial opportunity can become unclear. At the heart of the concern is a simple but important question. When influence is turned into something that can be bought, and when access to a public figure becomes part of a paid experience, where should the line be drawn between purpose and profit? This question becomes even more sensitive when royal association is part of the picture. Historically, royalty has been tied to ideas of duty, service, and responsibility to the public. It is meant to represent something beyond personal gain, something rooted in tradition, commitment, and sacrifice. So when modern engagements begin to resemble branded experiences or monetized access points, it creates tension between old expectations and new realities. Supporters may see innovation, entrepreneurship, and adaptation to modern influence. Critics, however, see a departure from the original spirit of public service. And so, the debate continues, not just about one retreat or one tour, but about what it now means to hold influence in a world where attention is valuable, access is powerful, and public identity can easily become a form of currency. What was the most fascinating moment of the event? How did the public perceive the event? Let's delve into the details of the public perception. From fascination to fatigue. Perhaps the most telling moment of this recent tour was not found in what Prince Harry and Meghan Markle actually did, but in something far more subtle and powerful: how the public responded to them. At a major sporting event, cameras briefly turned toward them as their faces appeared on the large stadium screen. In situations like this, especially for global public figures, the usual reaction is almost predictable. You expect a wave of excitement, some loud cheers, applause rising from different sections of the crowd, maybe even people standing up, waving, or reacting with visible enthusiasm. That is how moments like this often go when public interest is still strong. But this time, something different happened. Instead of a loud and energetic response, the atmosphere felt unusually quiet. There was no strong burst of applause, no clear excitement that filled the stadium. What came instead was a soft, uncertain reaction, almost as if the crowd itself was unsure how to respond. A few scattered boos could be heard in the background, but even those were not strong enough to define the moment. They faded quickly, swallowed by a larger silence, and that silence said more than noise ever could. For a couple who once sat at the center of global attention, where every appearance triggered headlines, debates, and endless commentary, this kind of muted reaction feels significant. It suggests that something has shifted, not necessarily in what they are doing, but in how people feel about them. What stands out most is not anger or admiration anymore, but emotional distance. This shift did not happen overnight. It has been building gradually over time. Since stepping back from royal duties, Harry and Meghan have remained highly visible through interviews, documentaries, public statements, and media projects. Each appearance added another layer to their public story. At first, there was strong curiosity. Many people were deeply interested in their transition and sympathetic to their struggles. But as time passed, the emotional tone began to change. The reactions became more divided. Discussions grew more repetitive. And in some places, the audience seemed less emotionally charged than before. What was once fresh and compelling gradually turned into a cycle of ongoing commentary, where similar themes were revisited again and again. When any public story is repeated too often, even if it remains important, people can begin to feel something like fatigue. Not necessarily rejection, but a kind of quiet, emotional tiredness. The story is still known, still followed, but the intensity of feeling around it begins to weaken. Their appearances in entertainment-related spaces also played a role in shaping this evolving perception. Reports linking Meghan to involvement in productions such as MasterChef Australia, along with public discussions about conditions, access, and participation, added new layers to the conversation. Instead of being viewed simply as guests or collaborators, some critics began to interpret these moves as carefully managed efforts to maintain visibility in the public eye. Whether those interpretations are accurate or not is almost secondary in moments like this. What matters more is perception, because perception shapes emotional response. And in today's media-driven world, perception often travels faster and deeper than facts. Modern public influence is no longer built on fame alone. It depends heavily on something more fragile, a sense of authenticity. People want public figures to feel consistent, natural, and genuine. When that sense becomes unclear, even slightly, the emotional connection can begin to weaken. And that is what seems to be happening now. The conversation around Harry and Meghan is no longer driven purely by admiration or strong criticism. Instead, it is slowly moving into a quieter space. A growing number of people are no longer reacting strongly at all. They are not deeply invested, nor deeply opposed. They are simply observing from a distance. That kind of emotional distance is important, because in public life, attention can still exist without real connection. People may still recognize a name, still see headlines, still come across stories. But recognition is not the same as engagement, and engagement is not the same as emotional investment. What we are seeing now is a gradual shift from emotional involvement to quiet observation. And in many ways, that is the most revealing change of all. Not loud rejection, not overwhelming support, but something more subtle and more lasting. Indifference beginning to take the place of intensity. In the world of public perception, that often signals a deeper transformation in how a story is received, remembered, and eventually how it begins to fade in emotional weight over time. Why is Piers Morgan picking on Meghan Markle? Could there be more to it than Meghan's display of emotion? Let's dig into the details of the feud that continues to shape public perception. Piers Morgan versus the Sussexes. More than 4 years ago, the British media landscape was shaken when Piers Morgan suddenly stepped down from his role on Good Morning Britain. His exit was not calm or routine. It was loud, controversial, and widely discussed across the world. It came in the middle of a growing public storm sparked by his repeated and very strong criticism of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The tension reached its peak after Morgan reacted sharply to the couple's widely watched interview with Oprah Winfrey. In that interview, Harry and Meghan shared personal experiences and concerns about their time within the royal system and their decision to step back from official duties. While many viewers felt Morgan was simply voicing a blunt and honest opinion, others saw his comments as too harsh, unfair, and lacking empathy. The disagreement quickly grew beyond normal debate and turned into a major public controversy. As pressure mounted, criticism of Morgan intensified both on television and social media. The situation became so heated that it eventually led to his departure from the program. However, even after leaving Good Morning Britain, Piers Morgan did not step away from the conversation. He did not soften his tone or retreat from his views. Instead, he continued to speak openly, defending his position and insisting that he was entitled to his opinion. From the very beginning, Morgan has drawn a clear line in his argument. He has repeatedly stated that he respects Harry and Meghan's personal freedom to choose their own path and live outside the royal system. In his view, every individual has the right to leave formal duties and build a private life elsewhere. However, his disagreement lies in how the couple managed their exit from royal responsibilities. He has often argued that although they stepped away from official royal duties, they continued to use their public platform in ways that still reflect royal influence and attention. In his words, this created what he described as an unofficial renegade royal identity. By this, he meant a situation where they were no longer working members of the monarchy, yet still carried global attention and authority linked to it. He believed this blurred the line between private citizens and royal representatives, leaving the public confused about what role they now truly play. Morgan has also frequently shifted the discussion toward the wider condition of the British monarchy itself. He has pointed out that while Harry and Meghan were building a new life in the United States, the royal institution was facing serious internal pressures. He has referenced the health challenges affecting King Charles III and Catherine, Princess of Wales, suggesting that the monarchy, at the same time, was dealing with uncertainty and needed calm and unity rather than public disputes and media tension. In more recent years, Morgan has not reduced his public presence. Instead, he has expanded it significantly. He now presents himself as a global media commentator with a growing international audience, especially in the United States. He has even claimed to be one of the most influential non-American voices in American media discussions, showing how far his platform has grown beyond British television. Alongside this expansion, he launched a new extension of his media brand called Uncensored, which focuses heavily on open and direct commentary. Within this platform, he also created a royal-focused space dedicated to ongoing discussion about the monarchy. According to Morgan, the purpose of this initiative is to provide unfiltered debate about royal affairs, especially during what he describes as a sensitive and unstable period for the royal family. This royal-focused content often revisits the actions and public image of senior royals, with Harry and Meghan remaining central figures in the discussion. Given Morgan's long history of criticism, many observers expect that Meghan Markle will continue to be one of his most frequent subjects. He has repeatedly questioned the couple's media projects, including the Netflix documentary series on their lives and Prince Harry's memoir, Spare. In his view, these releases have contributed to public tension and placed additional strain on the reputation of the royal family. He has gone even further by suggesting that Harry and Meghan should lose their royal titles. His argument is that continuing to use those titles while living independently in another country creates confusion about responsibility, identity, and duty. To him, it weakens the traditional meaning attached to royal roles. Despite strong disagreement from many people and ongoing public debate, Morgan has not changed his stance. He continues to speak firmly and consistently, regardless of criticism. In the end, The ongoing clash between Piers Morgan and the Sussexes has become more than just a personal disagreement. It has grown into a wider global conversation. At its core, it raises deeper questions about tradition and independence, public duty and private freedom, and how the idea of royalty should be understood in a modern world that is changing quickly and constantly under public scrutiny. What has been the monarchy's reaction to the ongoing media outburst? Is it confusion, strategy, or hidden action? Let's take a look at the monarchy's approach to the media outburst. The monarchy at a crossroads. Amid the growing storm of public debate and constant media attention, one question continues to rise again and again, refusing to go away. Why has nothing decisive been done? At the center of this silence stands King Charles III. As the reigning monarch, all eyes are naturally on him. Many expected that by now, a firm response would have been made regarding the ongoing tensions surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Yet despite the rising criticism, no formal action has been taken to remove their royal titles. This is especially striking when compared to the case of Prince Andrew, where titles and duties were stripped following serious allegations and overwhelming public pressure. The difference in response has left many people puzzled, asking whether the same standards are being applied consistently within the royal family. The situation raises a deeper issue about balancing royal duty and family loyalty. King Charles, as both monarch and father, must navigate the emotional bond with Prince Harry alongside institutional expectations. Their shared history complicates decisions, showing how personal relationships can intensify public and institutional challenges within the monarchy. On the other side stands the monarchy itself, an ancient institution built on tradition, discipline, and public trust. Unlike ordinary families, the royal family does not exist only in private life. Every action, every statement, and every silence is observed, analyzed, and judged by the world. The monarchy survives not just on history, but on perception. Its strength depends heavily on how consistent, fair, and firm it appears in moments of tension. Any sign of uncertainty can quickly become a question about its relevance. Within this tension, Prince William is often seen as taking a more protective stance toward the future of the monarchy. Reports and commentary suggest that he views the ongoing situation as more than just a family disagreement. To him, it may represent a wider challenge to the stability, image, and authority of the institution he is expected to inherit one day. From this perspective, the issue is not only about personal relationships, but about safeguarding the long-term meaning of royal duty itself. And this is where the heart of the matter truly lies. Because the conversation has now moved far beyond just Harry and Meghan as individuals. It is no longer simply about their choices, their public statements, or their personal journey. Instead, it has become a larger reflection of what those choices represent in the eyes of the institution, and how the monarchy chooses to respond when its own rules are tested. At the center of this discussion is a principle often associated with the late Queen Elizabeth II. She was known for her clear belief that one could not exist in a half-in, half-out position when it came to royal life. In her view, it was not possible to fully enjoy the privileges of royal status while also stepping away from its responsibilities, especially if personal financial gain was involved. Service and duty, she believed, required full commitment. Anything less risked weakening the very foundation of the crown. Today, that principle is being tested in a very public and very modern way. The boundaries that once felt clear are now being questioned, debated, and interpreted differently by different sides. What was once a firm rule now sits in a space of tension, interpretation, and disagreement. And so the question remains, hanging in the air with increasing weight. How long can this situation continue without a clear response before the silence itself begins to cause even greater damage than the actions being debated? So, what do you think about Piers Morgan's criticism of Meghan's emotions? Do you think she really acted it? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.